few of you reach out and y'all were worried that, driving while I was live streaming, especially if I actually look at the screen, is probably a bad idea, which I agree. So they just moved one of my meetings and I just left one and I'm like halfway in the middle of town and I'm like, I don't know what to do for half an hour. So I'm going to go jump on and say hi to people. So good morning for those of you who see this later. Good afternoon. Random thoughts today. God, it's been a week. So y'all, if y'all do pray, we need a little prayer in the house. We my accounting spouse made an error and we just realized what would happen. We're like, shit. So we're gonna have to battle that now. Nothing we can't overcome. It's just a stupid thing we thought we took care of and we didn't. So remember, folks, you make mistakes. Don't, after the initial shit, just figure it out. It's been a week. She's thoroughly pissed with herself. Hey, what's going on, farmer? But we got to figure it out. It's just like, really? That's, you missed that? And it's like, But anyway, speaking of missing things, I got to see the Angry Prepper had a rant. Hey, shalom, Jason. Hey, All-American. He had a short video, one of his like midweek videos, and he was like, this will be harsh. And I always know when he puts that title, because he uses the same title for those videos, this will be harsh. He's going out, somebody has agitated him to a point where he speaks out, and I think it's funny when he does that. The other day he went off on some rant, and the words, like, he was making curses up as he went, and it was so funny. Not only was I in tears, hey Holly, I went and played it back. I had a bad meeting that afternoon. I went and played his video back just so I could laugh at the people he was making fun of. But he had a good point, and it's something I've mentioned, we've all mentioned, but it's something to think about. I guess in a nutshell, we're not radioactive yet. So you're going to have a lot of people who have said, oh, well, again, Hudson does we're all going to die Wednesdays, partly to make fun of these same people. We're not all dead. Like, there's always a risk. If I learned anything in my risk management courses, is you have to assess not only the threat, like the likelihood of, or how would I say that, the severity of it, but also assess how likely it is, right? So let's say, for instance, nuclear war, right? From 1 to 5, that would be a 5, right? A nuclear attack would be catastrophic. But the likelihood of that nuclear war would be, say, on a scale of 1 to 5, would be a 1. Hey, Pennsylvania. I saw your other video. I commented, and then it got cut off. It was my connection. But I thought I left a comment for you. When I see the channels that we follow each other, and I try to at least, if you ever see me give you a like and then put some nonsense like, hey, good morning, or Egg McMuffins or something like that, it's just me trying to help the algorithm. I'm between meetings, so I can't like watch the whole thing. But hey, Aloha. But you got to understand from, hey, Love and Life, from a risk management or understanding what the threats are, right? So I like to use a 1 to 5. You could do a 1 to 10, however you want to do it. But again, a nuclear war would be, say from 1 to 5, 1 being least, 5 being most severe, most significant. A nuclear war would be a 5, right? That would be terrible, atomic attack, but the likelihood is closer to 1 because most of our leaders are not crazy people, you would hope. Is it a threat? Is it possible? Sure. The Ayatollah gets a small nuke and he gives it a Hezbollah and they give it to Al-Qaeda and then they go blow something up. But it's unlikely. Car accidents. Severity could be, like for the community. Obviously, if you're in the car accident, obviously it's a 5, right? Because you're hurt. But to the community as a whole, to your neighborhood, your town, one car accident would be a 1, but the likelihood of it happening would be a 5 because the shit happens all the time. So And I mentioned that in my book, Defensive Preparedness. I actually put a chart, which now looking at the graphic, I need a better graphic on the next edition. But basically, you can make a chart and say, okay, what is the stuff I need to really be aware of? Because people go on YouTube and say nuclear war and death and zombies, and hypothetically, you could have a zombie, right? Going to find them for the carbon footprint left behind by the nuclear. You know, I don't, I don't know if they're going to find them for the carbon footprint, although that would create a lot of carbon. Let me tell you what. Because think about it, if you incinerate every organic thing for 5 miles, that's a shit ton of carbon. Not to mention like gamma radiation and... All right. Is it back? I get these random ass phone calls from like Greece. Somehow I wound up, all right, I'm back. But anyway, as I was saying before, the random ass phone call from people I don't know is, on my work phone, I'm very good about saving numbers of people I need to talk to. So when I get a call and it's like some gibberish number, I'm like, yeah, you're just a spammer. But again, understand your area. So, you know, again, you live on the coast, right? You live in Florida, a hurricane could be severe, right? It could be like a 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, depending how bad it is. But the likelihood is a 3, right? Because it happens a lot. It's not rare and it's not every day. It's somewhere in between. But if you make like a grid, like a graph, you're going to find a lot of things in the middle, right? Floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, street crime, right? Muggings, carjackings, stealing cars. All of these are little shit hit the fans, right? Somebody gets in a car wreck, it's not an SHTF for the community. But that person may get hurt. That person may no longer have a car to go to work. So they're having a personal SHTF. Those are the things you want to prep for. You know what I mean? Hey, Oki, what's going on? By the way, when it froze, the chat flew by. So if I didn't say hi to you, I apologize, because a bunch of people came in right as it froze. Understand what the most likely stuff is, and then prepare accordingly for that. And you're going to find that most of it has a common denominator, right? And again, I mentioned that in the book. So your first aid kits, food, water, good transportation, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's an animal. Thanks, Ghost Lincoln. Even a motorcycle, whatever. Transportation, shelter. Hey, JRC. Those apply to almost every scenario, right? You have that level 5 event like atomic attack. Well, food, water, shelter, protection, that still applies. You have a car accident and now your car's broken, right? That's not an SHTF for the community, but your car's screwed up now. So you want to save money, you have the preps. You can still, instead of going out to eat or buying groceries every other day, you start using some of the preps, save some of that cash to fix your car. That stuff in the middle is what we need to prep for. And when you do that, you're also going to indirectly, hey Chad, hey Astatine, you're going to be preparing for the other stuff as well. So, you know, my friend Jason, I mean, he was on a rant. If you don't just look I think it was yesterday, a day before, he put "this is harsh." And he actually didn't curse that much in that one. Hey, Watchman. He just was making names for people, but he was doing it on the fly, and it was hilarious just listening to the man. I'm like, man, you could see his pistons were all firing. But he has a valid point. Obviously, if you have the money and the time and you're like, well, you know what, I'm going to get a mask, right? Like I have 2 of the mirror masks, one for me, one for the wife, and I fit it for her. And then, of course, she immediately ran and barked at the corgis while wearing a gas mask. Well, of course, the corgis freaked out because now mom's an alien, and I couldn't shut them up for 10 minutes. She was quite proud of herself. But am I expecting a chemical weapon attack? No, but I do live in an area where we have a refinery nearby. I do live in an area where there are gas pipelines going by. I do live in an area where we've had grass fires. the mask is a good option for those scenarios. Those were my most likely, because it does happen. It has happened since I've been here. I haven't had to evacuate, but we have big grassy fields out here with cattle and oil wells. And yeah, Pennsylvania, absolutely. And again, and the mirror masks are not cheap, right? I mean, it's going to run you, set you back a couple of $100. That's a budget item. But if you, right, a war would do that, Watchman, and that's what I was talking about. Like an atomic attack on a 1 to 5 would be a 5, right? That would be catastrophic. The likelihood is more of a 1. It is possible, but very unlikely. Hey, winning streak. Hey, Sherbear. But flipped around, having a flood could be a 3 out of 5. But it also happens very frequently in America, so that would be a 3 out of 5. So that's in the middle. Cow, you know what? I've never been around a cow fart, but I almost watched a cow pee on a friend of mine because he wasn't paying attention, and that would have been awful. I think he would have been traumatized for the rest of his life had he not moved. But oh yeah, Watchman, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. Prepare for the most likely. Personally, I think an economic Share Bear. I will tag everybody. It's good to see you, Share Bear. Prepare for the stuff that's most likely. In an indirect way, you're going to wind up preparing for the more fringy stuff, so to say. So again, like I said, I have a couple of mirror masks. I'm buying a filter. Filters are about $70. One every other month. And I got a handful of filters now. Got the 2 masks. I fit one for the wife, one for me. I got to find a better way to deploy them, because we fit them and then we put them back in the box, because I don't have a proper setup in the master closet yet. But we actually live in an area, like I said, there's a refinery. It's about 10 miles away. It's a plant where they process oil and gas. They make diesel. But if the winds reverse, I could wind up getting, if that catches fire, it can come to my house and it can be in the yard. So for me, and also I work in locations where you might have H2S, hydrogen sulfide, CO2, you could have other stuff. So, and that's why I keep my beard the way I do, because I can trim it down. And I do know the mirror mask will seal around the goatee as long as it's not too long. So, because I've actually tried, so I have to actually cut it back every so often to make sure I can still seal the mask. And I try to shave everything around it, because I know this here is where the seal's going to be. But it's a work thing, and it's also a possibility that makes sense. Area fires, a pipeline, a gas pipeline blows up, or, from an accident. It doesn't have to be something evil. That's something you need. But it's expensive, so you have to budget it. But if you panic and you prepare for this really fringy stuff, like Al-Qaeda's going to overrun my city, which could happen, but it's not very likely, you might wind up losing a lot of money that you could have put somewhere else. I don't know if that makes sense. So, I don't know, you're going to get some full body armor, like, so you can look like one of the guys from, that metal guy from Fallout, right? The knight with the body armor from head to toe. Great, you can spend $10,000 on that, but you'd be way better off spending $1,000 on the basics: food, water, first aid, fixing your house up, making sure your car worked. That would be a lot better use of your money. And yeah, and honestly, 2020, my prepping evolved. I was always a weather prepper. I got hit with everything in my life: tornadoes, blizzards, whiteout snow, hurricanes, floods. And then, if you do, oh yeah, Pennsylvania, that's true. Hey, Skydive. But again, folks, and Jason had a good point. He was just being comical about it, but he had a very valid point. And it's the same one Hudson does. We're all going to die Wednesday, right? We're all going to die eventually is where it goes. But understand what the real risks are in your area and say, okay, we're prone to forest fires. We're prone to grass fires. We have a chemical plant nearby. You may have none of the above, right? You may get a tornado. Well, the gas mask may not help you in a tornado, but you could put that money toward some other equipment, maybe good steel-toed boots. So if you have to walk through debris, you don't get your feet hurt. Because getting an injury during an incident is an absolute showstopper. It can be a serious problem. So folks, again, just echoing my friend, and he made a really good point, although his was comical. Prep for the stuff that makes sense. Prep for the stuff that's most likely to happen. And I promise you, in the course of doing that, you're probably going to wind up preparing for a lot of things you hadn't thought of anyway. The first aid kit applies to everything, right? Food can apply to almost anything. Whether it's a nuclear war or a hurricane, or you just got laid off and you can't, money's tight. Well, you got the food there, use it, right? And remember, prepping is not just for a catastrophe. It can be just a personal incident. And yeah, Watchmen, I don't know where the economy's going, but yeah, I'm worried about my grandchildren, because they're going to wind up contending with stuff that happens now. But just, having a car wreck, losing your job, and these are things that happen every day, right? Nuclear attack, 1945 was the last serious one. Is it a possibility? Sure. Could you prepare for it? Absolutely. But there are other things you can prep that will handle the stuff that's most likely to happen that still apply to that. And just thinking in those terms will save you money and a lot of stress. Hey, Nostradamus. Oh yeah, no, it's been weird. I did speak to one of the silver bullion guys in my town, and he's actually a retired Navy chaplain who got into bullion while he was overseas. He just started collecting them for fun, and then he actually did the homework and realized, wow, this is not only an economic hedge, but it's also an heirloom. It's something you can share with family, you can gift to your grandkids, and it has value over time. And he even told me, he said, silver and gold's been around since the days of Egypt and the Pharaoh and Moses, so why not now? And it's still here. And so he opened a shop, but it has collectibles. He has a signed poster from Scarface with the "say hello to my little friend" pose, but it's signed by Al Pacino. And it's one of the collectibles you could buy. That one's expensive. I'd rather buy the silver than that. But point being, I'm going to try to do a live stream at his store at some future point. I think that would be a lot of fun. 12 years old, he's got an IFAC. He's got his head on a swivel. Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, winning streak. My kids were all scouts, and they were all FFA. So they knew how to use tools. They knew how to weld. They knew how to use, basic knife skills. Everyone had a first aid kit in the car. Everyone had an MRE in the car. Now, when they were growing up, they rarely went more than 5-10 miles from the house, and they were track kids, right? So they could run the 10 miles if they needed to. I can't run 10 miles. I'll walk it, but I ain't running it anymore. But I knew if something happened, hey, Hutch, FFA is Future Farmers of America. And it's basically like a 4-H, maybe something you're familiar with. They teach agriculture, they raise cattle, chickens, pigs, they do competition. Hey, Shorty. And it teaches a lot of practical skills. It teaches a lot of pragmatic skills that I honestly think, remember the old wood shops where you learned practical stuff, or they used to call it home ec, it was really cooking. Practical day-to-day skills. Yeah, Gerald. Yeah, I was in the Scouts too, but my kids still had first aid kits. We built our own because when they were younger, there weren't very many good options on the internet. But they had a first aid kit. My daughter was a trainer, medical trainer for the football team, so she was like kind of like a field medic, and she got very good about stitching people, and then she became a surgical tech for veterinary hospital. So essentially my daughter will show up with stitches in her arm, and her husband's an oncologist. So if I see one of them with stitches, I'm like, all right, who did the stitches? And he'll be like, well, she did. They don't even go to the hospital because they think, my son-in-law thinks most of the doctors out there are retarded. Is his words. He said, when you find a good one, you're gonna know because they speak, hey, NYC, they teach very pragmatic, they talk very pragmatically to their patient. And he said if they're just pushing pharma, they're full of it. So, but yeah, folks, going back to the original subject, make sure you're not prepping for the 5-10% likelihood stuff. You're prepping for that stuff that is most likely to occur, right? Again, an atomic war, new atomic attack would be terrible. That's a 5 out of 5. Likelihood 1 out of 5. It can happen. Probably not likely, and probably not where a lot of us live. Like if they're going to do that, they're going to attack New York or something. They're not going to go out to West Texas or the middle of Missouri or somewhere in Tennessee in the Appalachians and pop off a nuke there. Like, what's that going to do? They're going to go after something important. Possible, yes. Probable, no. A flood, a forest fire, a refinery accident, a train derailment. That Ohio train derailment. Derailments, you get about 500 derailments a year. But, so they've happened frequently, maybe 2 or 3 out of 5. But when they happen, they can go to extremes. They can derail all by themselves and not spill anything, and it's a 1 out of 5. Not an it's just a cleanup. Ohio was a 4 out of 5. It contaminated a whole town, right? So you don't know. Yeah, absolutely, Hutch. Prep for what is most likely to occur. And in the process of doing that, you're going to prep for other things indirectly. Like I said, the mirror masks, because I'm an energy sector guy, I go out by refineries. I go out by, even the solar farms that we have out here. Every now and then they get hit by lightning, the damn thing catches fire. Now you have silicone and lithium-based solar panels on fire spewing black shit into the air, right? You need a mask. So for work, it was pragmatic, but we've also had grass fires in this area. We also have dust storms that can get really bad to where you'll crash your car. So the mask serves other purposes, but it was meant for a realistic, pragmatic thing. So that's what I want you guys to think about going into this year, because I think the political factions are going to, hey, Magic, are going to peck on each other and provoke each other, and it's going to be a bit of a shit show this year. An atomic or nuclear time. Wait, hold on. Hey, Miko. A time of war and proud. The best. United States of America. The baddest of all the countries. There you go. 14 tornadoes in 6 days in the last 24 hours. There you go, Watchmen. Tornadoes are a realistic thing. Hurricanes, floods. Train derailments are likely, but they go to extremes, right? If you derail and it's all coal or gravel, well, you made a mess. I mean, people can get hurt, but you didn't screw up a town. You made a mess. You spill a bunch of, toxic chemicals like they did in Ohio. Now you screwed up the town. Now the town is at a SHTF. So you never really know which way it's going to go. Prep for that stuff that makes sense, guys. Don't panic. Don't ruin your life, your happiness, wasting money, wasting time, wasting mind power on super unlikely things. Oh yeah, Miko, that's what I was just saying. Like train accidents, you get 500, 700 a year, but they go to extremes. Like it can be just, oh, you derailed and you made a mess and now you got to get cranes and bulldozers, or I just contaminated a whole city. And you don't know, you never know. It's kind of like, the box of chocolates from Forrest Gump. You don't know what you're going to get. Same thing. So guys, prep for the realities, prep for the likely stuff, the real stuff. Lost my job, had a car wreck, had a flood, tornado. And while you're doing that, you're going to indirectly prep for other stuff. Yes, practical preps. Thank you, Laura. Practical prep. Yeah, it was last year, the ammonium nitrate. God, I just blanked out. The pace of news, I forget a lot. So again, ladies and gentlemen, uh, Jason had a good point, and I just wanted to expound on that because it's something I really believe. He was just very comical in the way he put it. Prep for the real stuff. Conserve your money. Get the most bang for your buck. Okay? And if you're going to get something, you want to use a creator's link, great. If you get a better deal at Walmart, great. Right? Because you look like Survival Frog, the canned food, they're expensive. There's a 30-year shelf life, but it's expensive as holy hell. Or you can get Keystone. If you find it at Walmart, it's kind of hit and miss, and it's $7 and it's a big old can. And it lasts 5 to 7 years. You know, when it comes due, I'll make pasta with the ground beef. You know, I'll just drain it out and eat it. So look for those deals. Look for the alternative products. That's what a company would do. As an engineer, they're like, hey, this piece of equipment is getting too expensive. I'm going to go into alternative mode, and I'm going to try to find something else to take the place of that overly expensive product. So anyway, folks, I wanted to leave you with that. Be ready in a pragmatic way, in a practical way, in a way that preserves your budget. And don't do things, and whatever you do, please, whatever that jackass creator, do not run up a credit card. Okay, the banks will come after you. Okay, they're always going to collect their money. Don't minimize anything you owe. You may not be able to pay it all off. That's fine. Pay as much as you can so your exposure is as small as possible, because a lot of other people are not thinking right now. I literally had someone on our Facebook group in our neighborhood say, oh, where can I get a good price for a trade-in? Because I just bought an SUV, but it's $1,800 a month, and I didn't realize it would be that high. That's a damn mortgage payment in a lot of houses. What? Hey, we are the resistance. And then someone was like, how could you leave the dealership and not know exactly what your payment was? And she said, well, my husband's is 15. So, I mean, he did it too. No, now that's worse. So you're both not. For a pickup truck and an SUV, and you're paying $3,000 a month for vehicles. And you know their interest rate's like 7%, because that's the best you can get now. So there's a boatload of interest going to this company, and you're paying a lot. I don't get it. Don't do those things. Be practical, be smart. Think about what you do before you do it. Yeah, it is insane. And then, of course, the neighbors pounced on her because she threw her business out there, and then she got butt hurt. And I'm like, well, por pendeja, why'd you put it out there? There's certain things you just don't want to say on the internet because people will be like, well, that's duh. You know, and I could see if they said, oh, well, I have a car service, I drive executives, so I bought a Cadillac Escalade, an SUV, but that's a business purchase, right? And then you can write it off, you can depreciate it, you get mileage discounts from the IRS. Hey, Teresa, there's a whole other set of things you can do. Don't do that. Be practical, be smart. I've been fixing the old pickup truck. It's in great shape. Got new tires, new battery, did the transmission service. Got to do brakes. I intend to drive this thing for 300,000 miles unless it blows up on me. So, guys, be smart. Prep for the things that actually matter, that are most likely to happen. And like I said, indirectly, you're going to prep for other stuff. Shoot me an email if you have any questions about how I did a risk matrix, like the way I described. It's pretty straightforward. But anyway, you guys be good. Keep out of trouble. And yeah, just be cool. Don't give yourself a heart attack, guys. Y'all take care of yourselves out there.